Nobody at that party expected to watch a legend get humiliated in front of 200 people. Nobody expected the woman who did it to be thanking him by the end of the night. And nobody, least of all her, expected the lesson that followed to outlast the hangover by about 40 years. This is a fictional story about Bruce Lee and an imagined night when a stranger's open hand tested everything he believed about anger, dignity, and the difference between winning and understanding. None of it really happened, but it's the kind of story his philosophy makes you wonder about anyway. The party. Los Angeles, autumn, the early 1970s, at least, in this story. A producer's hillside house above Sunset Boulevard. The kind with a pool shaped like a kidney bean and a view that made every conversation sound a little more important than it was. 200 guests moved through the rooms in waves. Actors between pictures. Stuntmen who knew real violence and studio executives who only pretended to. A jazz trio working too hard in a corner nobody was listening to. Bruce had come because a young stuntman he was mentoring had begged him to. Just an hour, Sifu. People want to meet you. He didn't particularly enjoy these rooms. He found them loud in a way that had nothing to do with volume. Too many people performing versions of themselves. Too few actually present in their own bodies. But he came anyway, in a simple dark jacket, nursing a glass of water he never finished, watching the room the way he watched everything, completely, without announcing that he was watching at all. He was 31, 5'7", built like coiled rope rather than stacked muscle. If you didn't already know his face from the movies, you might have walked past him all night. Several people did. The woman. In this story, her name is Carol Ashby, and by 10:30 she had stopped being charming and started being dangerous in the specific way that only certain kinds of unhappiness become dangerous. Loud, then louder, then suddenly very quiet right before it breaks. She was 38, recently divorced from a director who traded her in for someone half her age, and she had been drinking since 6 o'clock with the particular determination of someone trying to drown a thought that kept learning to swim. Nobody at the party had done anything to her. That was the strange cruelty of where she'd arrived. There was no villain in her story tonight, no one to blame, which meant the blame had nowhere to land except wherever she happened to be standing. She was standing, at 10:40, 3 feet from Bruce. The slap. She'd heard someone whisper his name with a kind of reverence that lit a fuse in her, one that had been waiting all night for a match. She crossed the room unsteadily, drink in hand, and stopped in front of him with the swaying stillness of someone who has decided something and is now simply waiting for their body to catch up. "You're the karate man," she said. It wasn't a question. It came out like an accusation. Bruce turned to her fully, the way he turned to everyone, with his complete attention. "Something like that," he said. "Everyone in this room thinks you're so special." The word came out wet with contempt. "Big tough guy. Bet you've never been hit in your life, have you? Bet nobody's ever dared." He didn't answer right away. He was reading her, not as an opponent, but as a person. The way he read everyone, looking past the performance for whatever was actually happening underneath it. What he saw wasn't aggression. It was grief wearing aggression's clothes. The way grief does at parties at 11 o'clock, when nobody is watching closely enough to notice the difference. "You don't know me," he said gently, "so I'll forgive you for guessing wrong." That was the wrong thing to say to her, or the right thing, depending on what happened next, mattering more than what was said. Her hand came up before either of them had quite decided it would, and she slapped him across the face, hard enough that the sound cut through the jazz trio and silenced the nearest 20 feet of party in a single instant. The room turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Someone's wine glass stopped halfway to their mouth. His young student, 20 feet away, went pale and started moving toward them, certain he was about to watch his teacher do something that would end several careers in the same evening. Bruce's head had rocked slightly with the impact. A faint red mark was already rising on his cheek. He did not raise his hand. He did not step back. He did not, for several long seconds, do anything at all except stand there, looking at her with the same complete attention he'd had a moment before. Undiminished, unhurried, unoffended. What everyone expected. 200 people, in the silence that followed, were running the same calculation. They had all, in this story, seen or heard of what this man could do. Speed that defied belief. a reputation that preceded him into every room. They expected one of three things: that he would walk away in cold fury, that he would say something cutting enough to match the violence she just offered, or, the thought nobody wanted to finish, that he would respond with the kind of precision that ends fights in a single motion. He did none of those things. The reaction. Bruce exhaled slowly. Then he smiled, not a performance for the room, but something small and real, directed only at her. That, he said, was a good slap. Open hand, full extension, no hesitation. Most people pull back at the last second because some part of them is afraid of the contact. You weren't afraid of it. He touched his cheek lightly. You committed completely to something you'd already decided to do. That's rarer than you'd think. Most people only commit halfway, even to their own anger. Carol blinked. The drink in her hand had started to tremble, though not from fury anymore. The room was so quiet that the ice in someone's glass, clinking, was audible from across the patio. I don't want a compliment, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. It came out smaller than she intended. It's not a compliment, Bruce said. It's an observation. You're very tired of being careful. I think you've been careful for a long time, with the wrong people, and tonight you decided to stop being careful with the wrong target instead. He paused. I'm not the person you're angry at, but I understand why I was convenient. Her face did something complicated, anger trying to hold its shape against something that was dissolving it from underneath. Her eyes filled, fast and humiliating, in front of 200 people who had gone from horrified to riveted to something gentler, almost without meaning to. You don't know anything about me, she said, the same line she'd started with, but it landed differently now, not as a weapon, but as the truth. No, Bruce agreed. I don't, but I know what it looks like when someone is in pain and has run out of places to put it. I've felt that. Everyone in this room has felt that, whether they'd admit it at a party or not. The turn. He didn't ask her to apologize. He didn't extend his hand for a formal, theatrical reconciliation, the kind that would have made a better photograph than a better moment. He simply pulled a chair from the edge of the patio, set it down, and said, Sit, if you want. You don't have to talk, but the night air's better out here than in there. She sat. After a moment, so did he, in the chair beside her, ignoring the 200 people who were very deliberately pretending not to watch while watching completely. He left me for someone 23 years old, she said eventually, to the dark garden rather than to him. Everyone in there knows. Nobody will say it to my face. They just look at me like I'm something that happened to the room. I'm sorry, Bruce said. That's a real wound. It deserves to be treated like one, not covered up with a drink and a party and pretending it isn't there. So what, I should just feel it? Just sit with it? For a while, yes. Not forever. But pain you refuse to feel doesn't go away. It just finds the nearest stranger to land on. Tonight that was me. Next time it might be someone who hits back, or someone who walks away and never comes back. Or worst of all, it might be yourself. She was quiet for a long moment. Why didn't you just walk away? Or, I don't know. Do something. Everyone expected you to do something. Bruce considered the question seriously, the way he considered everything. Hitting you would have proven I had skill, he said. It wouldn't have proven I had anything worth having. The hardest technique I know isn't a strike. It's staying calm long enough to see what's actually happening before I react to what I think is happening. Anyone can throw a punch when they're hit. It takes longer to learn how to not throw one, and still not be afraid. The lesson spreads. By midnight, the story had already started traveling through the party in the way stories do, softened in some retellings, sharpened in others, but the center of it staying intact, no matter how many times it changed hands. A woman slapped him, and he didn't hit back, and somehow that was the more frightening, more impressive thing to witness. His student found him near the pool an hour later. I thought you were going to. He didn't finish the sentence. I know, Bruce said. Why didn't you? Because the fight she actually needed to have wasn't with me. He looked out at the water, the lights of the city scattered below the hill like something spilled. If I had answered violence with violence, I would have given her exactly the kind of story she could use to keep believing the world was only made of people who hurt each other. Instead, I gave her one data point against that. Just one. It won't fix anything by itself. but it's a thread she can pull on later when she's ready. That's it. One slap and a conversation, and you let it go. What would you have preferred? That I be strong with my hands and weak with everything else? Bruce shook his head. Anyone can learn to hit hard. It takes longer to learn what to do with that strength. Once you have it, the fist is easy. The restraint is the actual art. What happened after in the story? Carol Ashby did not become Bruce's student. She did not show up at his school the next week with a humble bow and a new outlook on life. The way these stories are sometimes told for tidiness. She left the party that night quietly, through a side door, and for a while, nobody saw much of her at all. But months later, in this fictional account, at a different gathering, a mutual friend mentioned that she'd started seeing a therapist, that she'd stopped drinking the way she had been, that something about that strange night on the patio had stuck with her, not as a humiliation she'd buried, but as a hinge point she kept turning back to. She told the friend, almost embarrassed to admit it. He was the only person that whole year who didn't flinch from me and didn't punish me for it either. I didn't know what to do with that. I still don't completely, but I think about it more than I think about anything he could have said. In this story, Bruce never told it himself. When students asked him, in scenes like this one, about restraint, about anger, about what real mastery actually looked like under pressure, he sometimes mentioned it in passing, without names, without theatrics. The measure of your training, he would say, isn't what you can do to someone who attacks you. It's what you choose not to do when you absolutely could. Anyone strong enough to hurt someone and chooses understanding instead, that's the only victory worth keeping score of. Everything else is just two people proving they know how to throw a punch. The world already has enough of that. The party on the hill in this story was forgotten by most of the people who'd been there within a year. One more blurred evening among hundreds. But for a handful of guests who happened to be standing close enough to hear the whole exchange, it became the story they told for the rest of their lives. Whenever someone asked them what real strength looked like, it didn't look like a counterstrike. It looked like a man sitting in a folding chair on a patio at midnight, letting a stranger's pain be exactly what it was, without needing to win anything from it at all.